You cannot live a life without it. It's like you need to put gas in your car. You need to take care of yourself, right? We know that. We know it more about the physical, but your inner health is actually way more powerful over your life than any external piece. And it's because it's what operates all of it.
This is Heal Your Part, and I'm Jennifer Herrera. I'm on a mission to help you heal what's in the way so you can see yourself the way your soul does. Because when you heal your part, everything shifts.
Welcome back to the podcast. So, my last episode, I did something that I've never done. And I may even be sounding a little dramatic, but for me, it was a big deal. I finally claimed what I know is my work, my mission, this movement of Heal Your Part. And I also just shared unbridled in a way that likely if I had spent some time editing it or going over it, I may not have actually shared it or I would have overthought it. And that's something that I am unlearning right now is that propensity to overthink, overproduce, and do the things that we women have been trained to do. And while I lay that down, that's going to be a key part of the inner work that I will be going through, which I'm actually grateful and excited to do. And one of the main ways that I'll be doing that is by not taking anything. I will take no thing, nothing personal. That is an oath that I took to myself as a means of support. And of course, I don't know if you've noticed this, but when you decide on something, then it's like that reticulator activator. You start to see it. So now I'm seeing all the micro and big ways that I can take life personally. And it has been not only revealing and interesting and at times comical and funny, it's been humbling and it's also been freeing. Because when we can release ourselves from the amount of story and self talk that we can get into in so many ways, mostly unconsciously, about ourselves, we free up so much space. In this episode, I want to share about Heal Your Part, what it is. And this episode, too, is going to be fairly unscripted, fairly free flow. And remember, that's what podcasts used to be. So I am a one woman show right now. That is not going to be the situation forever. I know that I was never meant to be a solopreneur and I was never meant to do things alone. I am much better in collaboration. And thanks to AI, I've had some collaboration, but of course, it's not a human being. It's not human beings. And that's what I want to collaborate with. And that brings me to Heal Your Part. I want to take a little bit of a memory lane, go back in memory lane when I launched my podcast, which is about June of last year. And I had some good momentum. I recorded quite a few episodes. Most of them were guests after I shared a little bit more about Heal Your Part and what it was going to be about. And then I lost momentum with just trying to do too much all on my own and not having it was part of the learning curve of understanding more about the editing process and how I could create a really great experience, not just for the guests when we're recording, but how to have a streamlined workflow afterwards. So I still have about 5 or 6 interviews that my intention is to share them. I think I already said this maybe on my last episode. What this episode is about for me is to talk free form about Heal Your Part because I did share a bit. I spent a lot of time. If you are a woman and you are a woman over 40, although I think a lot of us do this, but I know for women over 40, there is a lot of overproducing that happens, a lot of overthinking. And there's a psychology to that. And that is not how we didn't come into this world that way. We were conditioned to become that way, to be able to create and have our piece of the pie in this world. I mean, most of how all of us operate, regardless of what gender we identify as, is adapted styles of being related to how we metabolize our environment. And for women, it has been having to work extra hard to get our little bit of peace. And that's in every environment, especially in workplace situations or collaborations on a professional level because there's a proving that's happening. And because this work, this lens of mine on healing, on the inner, the interior, what's happening on the inside, has always been what has been interesting and I've been deeply curious about. That desire, that intention, that interest, that focus of mine was very natural. Like I didn't go searching for it. I have different understandings of it now after having lived some time and also processing the death of my mother and seeing how much that relationship formed how I became who I am and how I unconsciously decided what would be my role in the world. And now, in some ways, unlearning some of it or seeing just the beautiful synchronicities of all of it, because I do believe that we are always being prepared for what's coming next and there are no accidents. But I was born in the early 70s. So, self help was new. I remember the first self help book I ever heard of, which was Melody Beattie's Codependent No More. I'm definitely aging myself. There was philosophical books. There was books by, there was The Road Less Traveled, M. Scott Peck. Wayne Dyer was out. There were these thought leaders and these contributors in that space. And it wasn't necessarily mainstream like it is now, but it also wasn't valued. I felt like it had an asterisk around it. It's just always been what I've cared about. And I started to understand it about the healing when I started to develop more in my life and see things, but also when I went through a master's program in spiritual psychology back in I found it in 1997, but I started the program in 98 and I graduated in the year 2000. And then I went back and got an emphasis, if you will. So I turned in my degree after another year of academic rigor. It was amazing, experiential learning. And that then was an emphasis in consciousness, health, and healing. That education seeded in me, in a way, a path that helped me understand more about myself for sure. It gave me a powerful skill set. It gave me a way of understanding more about myself, how to metabolize. It gave me a skill set that the average person wasn't employed with. And I still had to grow up and mature and go through life, and nothing can really replace that because I can see how my skills have continued to compound over time with life experience and with just my own evolution. But this preoccupation, this deep caring, let me just call it what it is. This deep caring about the inner within humans that we are not taught, that we don't talk about, that if it is focused on, if it's a topic of discussion, it comes under the guise of mental health, self-help, or woo. And all of those can have stigmas attached to them. All of those can be trivialized by general society. The universal mind, the group think here is to minimize anything that can't be scientifically proven in that moment, which I don't think people also realize that there's nothing more mysterious than science. Science was all mystery until things became clear, and it also changes all the time. We know a lot more about the body and the brain than we did 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. But if you think about it, the mental health or self help or even woo, all those things are all focused on us becoming more learned, aware, awake, having a deeper level of understanding about how to take care of our person. And that is fundamentally our number one responsibility because everything we want to do in our life comes through our person. Everything we touch, every conversation we have, every role we play in our life, all of it is happening through us, through our body, through this shell that we're living through. And to the degree that we know ourselves, to the degree that we understand how we function, what our beliefs are, what our default patterns are, what our triggers are, that's all, knowing all of that is how we gain leverage in a higher level of functioning and self-leadership. When we feel, you'll notice this, like when we feel in charge of ourselves, we are more confident. We're more at ease. It builds a level of self-esteem because you feel more solid, you feel more rooted, you feel like you got yourself. The parts that tend to create the opposite are all the parts that where we're questioning and doubting and fearful. Well, when you are and you are connected to yourself and you understand as much as you possibly can at any given time in your life about yourself, that helps you become more rooted and confident because you feel in charge. And that creates that stability. And when you feel stable, you feel like you can handle the stuff that's coming at you. This education that I often talk about as it relates to our inner operating system, if this was standard in our education system, we would have a lot more people knowing more about themselves, understanding how their brain functions, how their physiology, their biology, what's happening as we evolve, what's happening in our bodies, our hormones, all of those things. Like, even, for example, menopause, we're just now learning how much research was lacking and how much, I'm going to paraphrase here, but how many ideas about even the brain was lacking as it relates to menopause because there was very little research on women's brains. So we have a lot of opportunity for growth, even in science. And what I'm positing and why I know this is my mission is that we are all in need of healing. I mean, you cannot live a life without having trauma, without having pain, without having loss, without having things that impact your sense of self, your sense of safety. And that obviously is a range given the life that you were born into, the skin color that you were born into, the socioeconomic background that you were born into, the culture you were born into, and how the world treats all of that. Like, all of that is impacting how we become who we are. And there's so many variables that we have absolutely no control over. So imagine if you actually did, though, understand more about yourself, about what does it mean to be a person, a human being? How do all your systems function? And how that impacts how you think every day, how you feel about yourself, noticing how lack of sleep impacts you, but really understanding a little bit more about that, and then being able to have this conscious awareness of yourself so that you can actually identify things and course correct. All of that is not standard operating procedure in this world as we know it. And as a result of that, we have a lot of people living either ignorant to their complexities, their beauty, their gifts, their skills, why they're really here, and living more in a reactive state of the thing they're afraid of, a reactive state to the thing that they're judging or pissed off about, and reaction to the thing that they don't want, and the reaction to the self judgment. There's so much there. And we also have like innumerable amount of ways to be able to grow and heal and learn about yourself. Now, I'm not going to lie. This is something that I would like to see someday. I believe and pray and hope and will do all I can before I die to see this shift within our education system, within how parents parent, because a lot of how we feel, a lot of how we turn out, if you will, is based on a lack of conscious awareness of human being a human being and parenting that just continues to get passed on. Case in point, I had a mom who was a boomer. She went through some serious stuff when she was very young before she met my father and had me. She had my brother who was 6 years older than me. She got herself out of a basically life or death situation and learned how to function beyond it and moved on with her life. Never processed any of it. Never had any conscious awareness about how that impacted her entire life. On top of how she metabolized her own worth and worthiness and her intellect because of how she struggled in school and how there was no support given to her because girls weren't invested in that way. So my point is that's just a case study. We all have that. Until we advance and evolve and call things and acknowledge things, we don't. Unfortunately, it seems we don't change. We have these like everything's built around capitalism and commerce, which I'm not necessarily saying is wrong or anything. It's just that that's how we like to operate in this transactional world. So we have like these billion-dollar self-help industries, but we still haven't actually shifted how we haven't just looked at the basics from my perspective of like, oh, why don't we go back to the root cause? and look at what if people understood more about themselves and understood more about how they function. Like you have to learn how a car maybe works. You have to learn how to take care of your teeth, or you have to learn how to, you know, like the basics we know about our getting a physical and that kind of stuff, or learning how to manage money, learning how your body and your systems work so that it helps you optimize how you feel inside yourself, and how you feel has a dramatic impact on the life that you create. We know all this, but we're not actually implementing it on, like, how do we actually go back and start bringing this into the earliest stages of education and help humans as they're coming into themselves on the planet learn more about this. I mean, it's incredible because it's all possible, and it's happening in pockets, but it's not happening in any grand scale that I'm aware of. And as long as we stigmatize mental health or call things woo when they could have profound effects on changing people's lives, we're also holding ourselves back in that way. So Heal Your Part is a heart song that came through me as a result of my own metabolizing of my life, and how my mother's life impacted me. And I was born in I lived and was born in her body, and her body went through some serious trauma that was never dealt with. Well, I lived in that body for 10 months before I came into the world. That impacted who I became, and then how I uniquely saw her and thought about her, because I also wasn't learning all about how I function. It was completely unconscious. So it was just driving my life unconsciously. Well, that is the same for all humans. I'm not special in that way. So, what I wanted to share on this podcast episode was to talk just a little bit more about this kind of these deeper layers, and knowing that one of the things that has held me back is the way that we have stigmatized things, and the way that I've bought into that consciously and unconsciously, wanting to meet people where they are, wanting it to be heard, or wanting to not be rejected. It's all of the internal and external parts of being in a human, meaning, like, of course, nobody wants to be rejected. And at the same time, I want to be smart with how I share things if I actually want people to hear me. I interrupted myself to turn the fan on, and I lost my train of thought. What I want to articulate and express in this episode is just to give a little bit more texture. And I'll share parts of this as we move on, and it will start to become more and more clear. And really, what I shared a little bit in that episode 10, was how I just had this awareness that I had to claim it. And so that's what's happening now. I'm standing in a real leadership position within myself, my own inner constitution, and recognizing that this is the work I'm here to do, and that I'm not going to stop until I do everything I possibly can. And one of my greatest levers of self support is to not take anything personally, because that's exactly what stops us all from doing the things that we want to do, or that we say we want to do, or that we're here to do, is how we internalize our life, our experience, and the response. And basically, Heal Your Part is intended to be a conversation, an experience, a dialogue, a offering, and a community, and a hub, or a potentially a social enterprise that begins to do a couple of things as I understand it right now. One is it becomes the voice of encouragement and the amplifier of healing, of the need to heal, of how that is just a necessary need for every single living human being. You cannot live a life without it. It's like you need to put gas in your car. You need to take care of yourself, right? We know that. We know it more about the physical, but your inner health is actually way more powerful over your life than any external piece. And it's because it's what operates all of it. So it's intended to be the voice of encouragement, of amplifying, of spotlighting, and then of talking about all the ways that healing is happening, the healers or healing acts that are happening, and then the opportunities of healing. And then also it's bringing that conversation into mainstream and making it become so alive that it literally creates a life of its own and becomes a more naturalized way of being a part of our constructs, our humanity, our society, our ways of understanding, living a life and being in a human body. And I also want to be able to share all the ways that healing can happen, because healing in many ways is scary. And I was sharing earlier about all those emotions, but the only reason why our bigger emotions, or the emotions that feel like the ones we don't want, with the ones that we reject, is because we weren't taught really about all the ways that we could actually be relating to our emotions. I have fears or challenges or anxiety. I experience anxiety. That's one of the things that I work with in this lifetime. And it didn't even start until 2011. And I think I have an understanding about why it really got initiated, and it's more active in certain parts of my life. And for a long time, I very much rejected it and didn't want it and judged it and was like trying to get rid of it, because it's like uncomfortable and we don't feel that we're in control. And I would offer that it's because we believe through what's been modeled, what's been articulated, what's been passed down, what's been emulated as what's okay and not okay. We carry this idea that that's the only time we're in control, and anything that's in the way of that means when we're not in control, and that's not good. And actually, anxiety or fear or worry are all parts of being in a human life. And if we can identify them in our body and acknowledge that they're part of the human experience, and learn how to breathe or be with them versus rejecting them, pushing them, pretending they're not there, like being so disconnected from our body that we don't even know when we're feeling things. I mean, that's how we've adapted. And that's what creates the story and the energy and the agita around it. That's why we reject it. But if we actually normalize that instead, and also grew skills and practices, and it's like when you're recuperating from an injury or getting some kind of a surgery or something, and you go to physical therapy or occupational therapy afterwards, that's essentially what I'm talking about. When we're growing up and you're learning some of those bigger emotions for the first time, how you learn how to relate to them is how your ideas of them start to get lodged in your consciousness. That's how you build your belief system. So I'm not going to go down a big philosophical lane right now, but what I wanted to share was that when we have these feelings that we don't know what's underneath them, or we dread all of that, the resistance and then the story around it is actually, that's what's creating the dis-ease inside of you. The fear is made up by you. You don't even actually know what's there. You don't even actually really know what you're capable of in relating and facing that or looking at that until you step into it with an open heart and support. Sometimes we need support, but recognizing that like most of us are living adapted lives around our pain. That adaptation is a much greater load than facing something that is scary from your past that might be you've identified is something you probably need to look at. And if you don't, that's what creates disease, because everything lives in our body. And I also want to make sure I'm really clear in saying that heal your part is not about like forcing you to look at all your shit. I mean, I encourage it, but heal your part is really just about bringing the awareness of healing and its function in you, creating a beautiful life that is the fullest expression of why you came here, because your life, everything about you is not an accident. It was all on purpose. And it's my experience that everything that we're doing in our life, including all the obstacles and often especially those, it's all preparation. It's all part of helping us become more revealed. It's all helping us learn more about what does it mean to be here? What does it mean to be me, you? Like, what am I here to do? What am I here to learn? The things that you actually really care about and pay close attention to that capture a lot of your energy and attention, that's informing you, about what really matters to you, or about where you have healing, or about something, maybe an area of contribution for you, or maybe it's your life's work. It can be any and all of those things. And bringing this movement of healing as heal your part is really about doing your part, by becoming more aware of how does this live inside of you and your life, and being consciously engaged in all the ways that healing is happening. And one of the examples I just recently shared on one of my socials was like this young woman sharing her cap and gown. I don't know if I already shared this, so I hope I didn't and being too repetitive, but you likely didn't hear it yet. This young woman who was, I think, graduating high school, and she shared on TikTok her cap and gown, and her caption over her video basically said, "I have emotionally unavailable mom and a father I've never met, so I thought I would show all of you my cap and gown." And there's like 4 million people that have liked and viewed this video, and hundreds of thousands of comments. Like, I mean, the love that this young woman received because she put herself out there, that is healing. That is one of the most powerful healing demonstrations I've seen. And then, of course, when you start looking for them, you see them everywhere. So there's that. And it's evolving as I step more fully into it. So I know I mentioned some things on episode 10. I am going to start a talk show conversation talking about healing with different people, and I'm going to let that evolve. I have some ideas about that, so it's a little too soon to share, but I'm going to really let it create itself organically, because it's really my intention is to steward this, is to stand in the highest level of leadership within, and to continue to be aware of all the ways, like not taking anything personal is one of the biggest commitments I can give myself, to support myself to follow through on all of this so that I can really lead it. And that for me also means being open to spirit, being open to being guided, being open to way the universe, the way God will direct me in doing this, because I do believe that's always what's happening, right? It's like that saying, life is what happens when you're busy making plans. And the last thing I want to share that I'm excited about is one of the things that I know I know this, and it's been reflected to me as one of my zones of genius, if you will. It's an area of that comes more naturally to me, is creating experiences. And I did learn some of this from my mom. I really love creating experiences. I love the curation. I love the detail. I love all the pieces that happen that give people an opportunity to step into something. And it can happen in so many ways. It could be like everything from like a wedding shower to a birthday experience to a date night to a leadership conference. It's all of that. And I don't know if it's partially because it's not something we're doing all the time. And so if you're going to devote your time, like, let's make it really awesome. And like, I love when there's like things that just surprise and delight, like the unexpected in all the good ways. I feel like it's also really highly creative. And when people walk into experiences that are really powerful and infused that way, it actually stimulates our creativity and our synapses and all of our senses. And I love that, because I think that's such a powerful way to help us remember who we are and why we're here. Clearly, you can see I can geek out on this all day long. I was in my church's annual conference this weekend, and I just had this download about, oh, this is about creating an experience. So I see a large event that creates, maybe it's over a couple of days, I don't know. There's a lot of steps that have to happen before that, but it's really about having a heal your part event where there's all these different experiences for people to test and try things, if what they want, and choose on different modalities, from everything from like yoga and breath work to tai chi to meditation to somatic to sound to nature to art. I even thought, I know there's these young women, I think it was some young women that put together this telephone booth where people can call and leave a message like to their loved one that has passed, or having like elders come and like have listening booths. I feel like there's just so many different things that this could entail. And then there will also be likely smaller events like retreats. And I mean, it's unlimited. So I'm really excited about how this is all opening up and going to unfold. I'm excited about creating the dialogue. I'm working on the details. I will continue to share. I don't know how many episodes I'll do just about it, but I definitely will keep in the threads, and I'll be inviting you to things, maybe even as my own little commercials on these episodes of Heal Your Part. And like I said, I have about 5 interviews that I have yet to share. Those will be forthcoming. And then this talk show will really be under the Heal Your Part podcast. And when I say talk show, I am a bit of a neophyte. I mean, I'm not as it relates to viewing talk shows, but I am a neophyte in creating a talk show. But for me, it is about it's not going to be scripted. It's going to be about having a conversation around an area that would support, relate, or amplify healing or healing your part with different minds and people coming from different places to have a conversation. And it's an iteration of what I always wished. When I've seen certain talk shows, especially ones that have a format with like several women, I've always had this desire, this intention to create a talk show that is like a conscious talk show where you're not reading from a card that someone's told you what you should say or all that stuff, and you're not feeling pressure to not be authentic in your perspective, and or you're not tiptoeing around not saying things because of all the ways that we've built things to not piss the powerful person off or whatever. And also about creating a dialogue in real time that is conscious, that can have opposing views and be respectful and loving and caring and all of that. So more to come, but I wanted to pop in here and share a little bit more about this movement. I'm working on creating a press release. Right now there's a landing page for you to put your name on the wait list. Very soon I'm going to create a website that will start as a place where you can make a pledge to be a part of Heal Your Part. And you'll receive a couple of goodies for free when you do that. There's going to be merch. I'll have hats, maybe eventually t-shirts. And I also have a tool called the Practice, which is a neutral observation journal, which is a powerful way to begin in a very gentle and in many ways like intellectual but mental way of being able to understand yourself a little bit more. It's a powerful way to become more self-aware because it's really a neutral observation practice, and more to come on that. But I just wanted to pop in here and share a couple things as they were present for me, and after having some inspiration from this conference and sharing a little bit more about as it takes shape on what it can be, I will be sharing more about that. And this is the current update, and it's just getting started. If you're new to the podcast, thank you for listening. I invite you to subscribe. I invite you to join me on this journey. I really feel this wholeheartedly. This is a journey that is unlike many, and it's going to unfold. And I would very much like the support and engagement. And even if this is not your thing and you happen to be listening to it, maybe forward it to the person that you know this might be their thing. This is a groundswell. This is going to be a community building. And I know that I happen to be living in a time in human history where we've never had a greater opportunity to focus and to bring healing, the awareness of healing, the opportunity for healing, and all the ways that healing is happening, can happen, and needs to happen to the forefront. I mean, what's happening in 2026 right now it's like perfect timing. So I appreciate you so much. I truly do. Thank you for being with me, and subscribe and share.